Our political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje, is standing by to have a conversation with President Cyril Ramaphosa, just to recap on what the president said in the morning in his opening address. Mzwandile Mbeje, I'm told you're ready for us now. Thanks for bringing this live to us. It's over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Desiree. Indeed, the President of the Republic, President Cyril Ramaphosa, is already here seated with us to expand on some of the issues that he raised when he opened the fourth investment conference. We know that with COVID there were some disruptions, and I guess the pace in which he wanted may have slowed down a bit, but I think he's adamant that whatever he had set himself out to do, he will be able to achieve it. Mr. President, welcome to the SABC. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to us. And of course, this is one of those conferences or investment conferences that are your own, and you want to really, even if we have to talk about legacy, this one thing that you want to really show to the public.
Yes, we started a process of attracting investments in 2018 by holding these conferences, and we set a fairly high target of 1.2 trillion rand, which is a huge amount of money. And so far we've done very well. We've raised 774 billion, and it's almost 2/3 of the amount of money that we wanted to raise, and many of those projects are already underway, and some have fallen through the cracks because of COVID, which is understandable. Yeah. But I think we are on target to reach our 1.3 trillion rand of investments flow into the country.
But here is the trick. As we sit here, just outside, we have people protesting who were retrenched by Clover after being taken over by Israel.
Yes.
So is this not negating the message that we are trying to portray here?
No, it does not negate that, because you've got to look everything in the bigger scheme of things. Of course, the workers at Clover, they have a dispute with their employer, and there will always be disputes with employers and employees, and we have a fairly sophisticated and a very mature labor legislation dispensation that deals with that. And the reason we put those laws in place is because we anticipated that there will be disputes like retrenchments and dismissals that needs to be dealt with in terms of the framework that we put in place. So now and again companies run into trouble or whatever trouble, and they need either to shed workers, and sometimes they employ workers. Now here we are dealing with 1.2 trillion rand of investments, which should lead to more people being employed. And so that is the broader picture that one is talking about, and not saying that the retrenchment of workers at Clover is not important. It is important, but we've got a legal framework to deal with that. The other one we're doing is a drive to increase more people who should be employed, and that is bearing fruit.
It does send some sort of a negative signal, though, that you have this initiative, which is great, but you have people outside. I'm sure that doesn't make you happy.
No, it can't make me happy, but at the same time, we've got to go on with a bigger picture of attracting more investment so that more South Africans should be employed.
Yeah.
And within the legal framework we've got to deal with the other challenges and problems that will always arise. So we will have these problems on an ongoing basis, and our objective must be to minimize them and to minimize their impact as well.
Mr. President, I think everyone is saying South Africa generally is able to diagnose the problem, is able to see what sort of challenges we have. But it does appear that at the implementation level, we really struggle, despite that we know what we need to do, and sometimes we have resources. So how are you going to ensure that If that money comes in, it benefits the people it's supposed to benefit.
Well, the objective really of attracting 1.2 trillion rand of investment is that one, it must not end up being pledges. It must be turned into real investment projects.
Yeah.
And already a number of them are being turned into those projects. So it stopped just being a promise or just talk. So there will be implementation, and there's already implementation on that. And the benefit that will flow to our people is that more jobs will be created and more sustainable jobs will also be created, and decent jobs. So that is the real objective of all this. And on our side, of course, we've always raised the issue of implementation. And sometimes we take too long to implement, and we're now speeding up the process of implementation. For instance, we waited almost 2 decades for the spectrum, but it is happening now, and it is going to improve communication in the country. And of course, we must up our game when it comes to implementation and make sure that things are implemented and decisions that we take are implemented. That is part of the corrective measures that we are now taking and ensuring that things do happen. For instance, there was the company that wanted to assist with water in Mogalakwena in Limpopo. They were like in dispute for 3 years, and that was resolved just in 3 meetings because we've ensured that we've got someone who is going to make sure that implementation does happen.
Yeah.
So we're beginning to turn things around, and things that have taken a long time to be done, we're turning them around, we're insisting that there should be implementation.
Sure, I think it's understandable what you're saying, Mr. President. But we have seen some of the infrastructure collapsing in front of the people who are supposed to maintain it. We have seen projects, Mr. President, being stopped either because there's corruption or sheer incompetence. How are you going to ensure that these don't repeat themselves? Because, I mean, you can go everywhere. How do you even explain that our country has become the dongers? It's not even potholes when we have companies and people who are supposed to do that.
Well, that's a problem that I have identified. I've articulated it, and corruption has been one of the key problems. We are dealing and tackling corruption and deploying people who are not capable of executing the task. We are dealing with that as well. And getting projects off the ground and making sure that they happen is precisely what we are dealing with. Now, obviously, we all want all these things to be done in one day, but it takes time. It takes time. The important thing is that we have identified the challenges. We now can pinpoint exactly where the problems are, and we are dealing with them. And we're turning things around. The potholes are going to be closed. The infrastructure built is going to start picking up. We are mobilizing money, we are mobilizing resources, and all those things that have gone wrong in the past are going to be addressed and put right.
Are you comfortable? Do you have confidence in the people that you have charged with that responsibility?
Yes, I have confidence in the people that have been given tasks that they will execute. And all we now need to do is to get focused and make sure that everyone puts shoulder to wheel and we get things done. That's the real task that is ahead of me.
I think the other issue that might derail that which you are doing, Mr. President, I mean, about 4 weeks ago, we saw the war in the East European in Ukraine, for example. I know South Africa has been quite active in terms of trying to get things right. So we have been affected. I mean, next month or next week, petrol is going to be so huge. How are you going to make sure that we mitigate that kind of impact that will hit hard and actually lose to job losses?
Well, the war, the conflict in the Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia is affecting many countries in the world. Many people are going to be affected. And every country is now seeing how best it can deal with that, from the imports that it gets from that part of the world and the exports that it also exports there, because we export quite a lot of our products there. So all that is going to be under great stress, and it's going to be challenged. And the price of fuel is going to go up, price of food is going to go up. And we are looking at that at government level to see what the impact is going to be, how negative it is, and how we can address and mitigate whatever negative impact might be. So those are matters that are top of mind, and as far as I'm concerned.
Just going towards closure, Mr. President, I'll just use this opportunity. We had a draft, resolution that we needed to present to the UN, but we threw it at the 11th hour. So are we going to get it back? So what was the issue there?
Yeah, no, we are going to put it forward again. And all those things happen because you negotiate with your other partners. So the resolution is going to be put back and it will be voted on. And this is what happens at the UN. It's the type of politicking, arm twisting that happens in a situation like that. So it's nothing really outlandish. If we get support, we get support. If we don't get support, it's not the first time that a country has put forward a resolution and it does not succeed, or it succeeds. So this is par for the course. It happens all the time.
Well, I wish we had more time, Mr. President. So unfortunately, time is the enemy.
Time is always the enemy.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to talk to you again, Mzwai.
Yes,
Thank you.
no, thanks. Except that we still need that longer interview that you promised.
You will get it.
Well, that was President Cyril Ramaphosa there, just unpacking some of the issues around the investment conference. And of course, is going to be here until the whole day today. It's a one-day conference. It's back to you, Nzinga, in the studio.